there, Dr. Sheep here. Welcome back to another project video. Today we're going to make a ping pong ball break the speed of sound. How are we going to do that? Well, stay tuned after the intro. Hey there, YouTubers! Okay, so last month I made a ping pong ball go unconfirmed 300 miles per hour. So this month we're gonna make it go like over double that, unconfirmed, because the speed of sound irregular is about like 700 miles per hour, a little bit faster than that. And for my metric viewers, that's an indeterminable amount of speed. Anyways, so how are we going to do that? Well, it's easy and difficult all at the same time. So to make it go 300 miles per hour, for a brief just refresher, we put the ping pong ball in a tube like this one. We pull the air out of the tube, sealing both ends, pop the end, say there's masking tape, we pop the masking tape, air rushes in, propelling the ball at stupid velocities. Now, to get to go Mach, to go break the speed of sound, we have to get the air rushing in to go a lot faster. So I bought this to turn into a pressure vessel. Yes, it looks like a pipe bomb. Or what's a more advertiser-friendly thing, even though we're not making money. Anyways, yes, this is our pressure vessel. No, it can't actually handle that much more pressure than PVC. It just, for my own sake of making me feel safer. Anyways, but that's not the old component. The last component is something called a choke. What a choke does, insert fancy graphics here. Basically, we take our air rushing in and we concentrate it down to a small point. And then as it expands, and then we expand that back out. And these angles are very important. Well, they normally are if you're doing a good job at this. But for today, I'm going to turn the nose cones of model rockets into our choke. You can do this in a variety of ways to make a choke, but this is the only way I've been able to come up with that might work. Anyways, as that air expands, its velocity increases, therefore pushing the ball faster out the other end, and hopefully it will go Mach. The key problem may arise is separating the vacuum from the pressure. I'm gonna hope that the packing tape just breaks at like 120 psi. My pump is rated to 170, and I also don't have an emergency release valve, so let's hope that it doesn't just get to 170 psi and I just have to stand here looking at it like, I also don't know how well it's gonna seal, so let's just start doing cool crap. Okay, so step one is to basically seal up the ends of our pressure chamber. Now, the first step is to apply Teflon tape. Now, do I know the actual proper way of doing this? I do now. At the time I did this, I did not. But as of like 2 days ago, I learned the proper way of doing this. Also, what I showed you earlier, the picture of the choke, the diagram, that is a rocket nozzle. If that is how it would work for this, then I am doing I've been doing mine in the wrong direction, which is very important for later on in the video. But anyways, after Teflon taping everything up and screwing on the two ends, one of the ends needs to then be glued because it's adapters into adapters, unfortunately. And so I go out on my deck because the last time I did this inside with PVC cement, I started coughing a lot. And in this case, I got my hands covered in PVC cement. And then it looked like my hands were peeling off, and in fact, it was just PVC cement. It was a fun time. I actually forgot I had this footage. So I do show myself actually screwing everything together onto the pressure vessel and making it a more complete pressure vessel. And this is a very interesting story because getting these parts was a pain in the rear. Basically, the only pump I could find that was high pressure and cheap was a bike pump, which means I have to do this by hand. And bike pumps do not just attach onto normal air chuck attachment points. They attach to Schrader valves. And so I scoured Amazon for high pressure Schrader valves. Well, if you just type in Schrader valve, you can get higher pressure rated Schrader valves than you can find if you type in high pressure Schrader valves. It's the dumbest thing. But you have to also get the right size. It has to be like eighth to quarter. I thought I got eighth to half, which I thought half was the right size. You need to get eighth to quarter. Oh man, it was a whole thing. I sent so many parts back to Amazon, but I eventually got the right part. And it works. Most Schrader valves are meant to just go right into a piece of rubber. They're not meant to go into metal, so they don't really have a screw point. So finding one with a screw point, I had to go to Amazon. I couldn't just go to my local hardware store. And I decided to actually install a safety valve because I didn't want to blow myself up or waste a bunch of my time trying to depressurize the system. Although that problem has yet to rear its ugly head once during this experiment. So, yay. Okay, now that we have everything glued together and screwed on, it's now to move on to the actual choke itself. The pressure vessel is pretty much done. So, to do that, we have to take our rocket nose cones and modify them. So, step one is we need to know at what point the diameter of the nose cone becomes the diameter of the tube. Now, you could measure this with like string or something like that, or you could just shove it in the PVC pipe until it stops and then draw a line with a Sharpie, which is exactly what I do. Very, very simple. Then you take an X-Acto knife or a box cutter like I have and carefully and slowly cut through. You could use a saw. I didn't have a saw, and so I used this. Now that you've done that and you have your two ends, it's time to do some sanding. So, you need to be very careful that when you need to figure out how small the point at which the two nose cones meet. And it's possible mine is just not small enough. But anyways, to make sure that my size was the same size for both, because that's important, I put a wood dowel through the center, or as close to the center as I could get, and then went to my sander and just and held it there until a wood came through, and then I'm like, yep, that's the right size. Very inexact, but it worked. I didn't hold it as straight as I wanted to. The whole dowel thing was to like make sure things were straight, but I didn't care that much. And that probably hurt some performance a little bit, but that's later, I swear. Now, one thing I didn't realize this plastic was going to have is that it melted more than it just like flaked off. And so when I put it on the sander, it like bloomed and just like made these long ribbons that I then had to like cut and sand and do all sorts. Now, to attach the two nose cones together, you can do a variety of things. I went and got plastic bonder. I thought it was 2-part epoxy. It's just 2-part plastic bonder. It doesn't actually say epoxy anywhere. And I also forgot I picked tan. And so I came up with a really clever way of doing this. And again, the whole point of what I did in this was to make sure that everything was straight. So you run the dowel between the two nose cones where they meet in the center, and then basically shove it into a thing of foam. And surprisingly, the whole thing stood up quite nicely. You get microplastic everywhere from the plastic urethane foam you get from Walmart, but it worked. And then now, once you've let your plastic bonder, solidify and cure, you're on for the next step. I just want to say something here. The epoxy worked. I've been thinking about this for so long. I've been thinking about how to make this choke for so god dang long. And the fact that I have it, it's in front of me. It's not the straightest thing in the world, but that's fine. It makes me happy. All right. Our next step is to insert our choke into its housing, the PVC pipe that will be attaching to the vacuum section and then the pressure section. And so this is the whole ordeal. cutting the PVC, I wanted to do it with the miter saw, but I didn't want to go all the way to my parents. I didn't want to drag the miter saw out all the way over to an outlet and do that. So I've dug through receipts for an hour the morning I filmed all this, found my old Menards receipt, took the already cut up piece of PVC to Menards, walked back to the yard, cut the piece of PVC on their miter saw. This is questionable whether you're actually allowed to do this, but I did it anyways. I didn't care. No one ever questioned me. And then we were good. Now, something I learned. When I watched I Did a Thing make his Supersonic ping pong can, he said plumber's putty. So I bought plumber's putty like a month in advance for this project. And luckily, Menards lets you return things, even if when you return it like a month in advance, a month after you buy it, especially if you have the receipt. Otherwise, you just get Menards credit, and then you need to get your ID to make sure you're not stealing things. Anyways, it's a whole ordeal. Plumber's putty cannot be used on plastic. Do not use it for plastic. It's only for metal. I didn't know this. Apparently, it dissolves plastic and PVC. Well, you learn something new every day. So I was like, well, what am I going to use? So I talked to the plumbing guy, and he's like, I got you. I didn't want it to solidify. I mean, it could. It doesn't really matter if it did or didn't. And he took me over to the ductwork, and they have this putty type stuff, very similar to the plumber's putty, and I just stuck that around, put my plastic bonder on there, used a ton of it, and just shoved it into the PVC pipe. And it works. It holds really well, holds really nice. It just works. So if you're ever going to do this, which I recommend you do not, but let's say you decide to do it, make sure you go and get this ductwork putty. I don't know the name of it. And I bought like 2 pounds, and I had to return the other pound because I did not need 2 pounds. I will say, though, it is much more expensive than regular plumber's putty. Keep that in mind. And it's very sticky. I tried to use latex gloves to do this, and it would just stick to the latex gloves. And so I think I just took the gloves off at some point, or just tried it. It didn't matter. Probably just do it without gloves and just wash your hands afterwards. It makes it easier. On to the next step. This is a very minor step. I'm going to be very quick here. Basically, some of the plastic bonder got on the outside of the PVC, which prevented me from being able to insert it into the couplings, which prevented me from able to get it sealed, which prevented me from able to run any tests. And so I had to go and sand it off. Very quick, very simple, and it's basically the last step. The thing is done, kind of. Remember how I said we were at the final step and we were done? That micro step? But that was kind of a lie, but not really. Basically, the thing is constructed. Except I figured, it was a bad guess, but I figured that if I just insert the tubes together, pull a vacuum, insert my pressure, everything will be just fine. That is wrong. That is a lie. The CIA invented that lie. It is wrong. I needed to come up with a way to hold it together. Basically, the very first test, which is what you're seeing here, when I started to input the pressure, it just went, and the pressure on the vacuum side just came apart. Thank God it didn't get a lot of pressure for it to start to go and just shoot the vacuum end across my apartment. Oh my God, that would have been very bad. So I had to come up with a way to hold them together. And this is the jankiest piece of engineering I have ever done. I don't know if you've noticed at this point in the video, but this is all voiceover. And to be honest, I kind of like it. It's much easier than having to make word sentences on camera and then piece that together with voiceover. Just doing all voiceover just makes it perfect. Okay, so jank engineering. Well, you're going to stare at my butt for a good period of this. I'm sorry, unless you like the look of my butt. If you're a woman, DM me, I guess. Anyways, so I originally had theorized this is what I was going to have to do. Basically, I'm going to use ratchet straps. Oh boy, with the term ratchet in there makes it just so much better. I'm going to use ratchet straps to hold my pressure and vacuum side together. It's like holding the core of a star together before it just explodes in a fiery explosion that kills everything. It's what I'm going to attempt to do. So, to do this, I had a variety of ideas, and I went to Menards again to talk with some of the guys. I used to work there, and I'm like, guys, what do I do? You're smart. And the old hardware manager looks at me, strokes his beard, and goes, I got an idea for you, kid. And I'm like, okay. and he showed me these U-bolts. And I'm like, I stared at the U-bolts for a while, and I thought, and I let it process. And I'm like, I like where we're going with this. One little caveat with the U-bolt, and these are all things I had foreseen, except for one. I had foreseen that when you start to wrench the bolts down, the nuts onto the bolts, that you're going to bend the brackets. That's just, I expected that. Okay, I also knew that they're going to be able to rotate quite easily. Sliding them will be a bit difficult, but since we're holding things together compressively, that isn't a big deal. And it's not. We're also on the very shortest amount these ratchet straps can do. We're also pushing the ratchet straps to their limit. I bought the cheapest ratchet straps money could buy. At Menards anyway. And the other thing I did not foresee was that the brackets for the U-bolts, I wanted to use multiple brackets so that the hooks from the ratchet straps had something nice to hook into. Turns out you can't just buy some of these brackets for the specific U-bolts I bought. You can special order them, but it would just be cheaper and quicker just to buy more U-bolts and then just have scrap U-bolts laying around. I guess I could always use them for a future project or sell them for scrap. And so now, once everything is bolted down and together, we have the final form of what is, in theory, a supersonic ping-pong cannon. And you're going to hear why I say, in theory, in the next clip. You ready for the biggest blue ball of your life? Wow, that's a statement. God, what is this video turning into? Nope, we're not doing another TV error. We're just going to continue on with this. Okay. There is no supersonic test. I ran out of time, I got too busy, and too lazy. Mainly because trying to hold this damn thing together with these ratchet straps is a lot of work. Okay? It's a tremendous amount of work. And then pumping the thing, it's just a pain. I hate it. It's the worst. And I'm doing all this by myself. It's just impossible. Oh my gosh. So I ran some tests, alright? I came to a few conclusions, especially after watching this video. I have many conclusions. We are not getting the power that we need. And basically, all of the tests, except for the one I'm going to show you here in a moment, that I run after this, just don't have the power. This is the damage done to one of the ping pong balls when I put it in the chamber and launched it at a ping pong paddle, because that's like one of the things you do. You launch it at a ping pong paddle to put a hole in it. We didn't put a hole in the ping pong paddle, we put a dent in the ping pong ball. That's it. That's it. That's the entire dent. That's the extent of the damage. And that was the latest test. The problem is the vacuum side isn't holding a vacuum. So the vacuum pump has to be on pretty much the entire time. It will hold a vacuum for a very short period of time. So basically, if somebody would run the vacuum pump while I run the pressure pump, I can tell them, turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. And basically we can time it to where I can get about just enough PSI in the pressure side to pop the seal, which, congratulations, 2 layers of packing tape is enough to get a good amount of PSI and launch the ping pong ball. Problem is, with the vacuum pump still on, I'm pretty sure it's causing the ping pong ball to get caught up somehow, and we're losing a lot of speed. And the reason why I think that's the problem is because when I did my first test, and I'm going to show you some footage here, this is the damage done to the ping pong ball that hit nothing. It hit nothing. Actually, it hit, well, let me show you. It hit this. It hit the edge of this. This is what's holding on the front layer of packing tape onto the vacuum side. It hit this, launching it across my apartment, breaking one of my blinds. Do not tell my landlord. I had them replace it, telling them it just cracked and broke off. No, it hit the blind and broke it itself. And that's how we got this damage. And the vacuum pump was off for that test. I mean, the vacuum was on. There was a vacuum. I just wasn't running the test when I just wasn't running the pump when the seal broke. And we got this. So I know there has to be enough power in it. It's just a lot of work to run one test, and I'm also realizing it is 7:30 at night. I do have time to actually run a test before tomorrow, but I'm just that up with how much work it is. But like I said, there is a theory of how I could get it to work. Basically, I think where the vacuum is bleeding is basically where the choke meets the coupling, that area there. If I take some clay, let me see if I can find it. I have this Crayola clay. Now, ooh, this is a lot harder than I was expecting. Well, yeah, maybe not. Well, the Crayola clay, when it doesn't dry out, this isn't supposed to be dry outable. It says reusable. It says no messy crumbling. It's crumbling. I was lied to by the government. Too much anti-government here today. Point is, I was going to use some sort of clay, or I guess I could use now. You're literally watching me work out the logic of this as I'm recording this, and this is starting to ramble on a bit longer than I would like. Basically, I just need to find a way to seal that. Phil had an idea to use heat shrink that you would use on electrical cabling, and that's cheap. I just don't want to get that much heat close to the PVC. He says it'll be fine. I have my doubts, but like I said, this clay, or if I want to be really risky, I could use the ductwork sealing. That would work too. The reason why I don't want to glue it, because gluing it would fix the problem, and I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. Permanently PVC cementing in place would mean that I now no longer have just a regular ping pong can. Plus, I still, after today, have doubts that I have the choke in the right direction in the first place, which could also be costing me performance. I also think the choke has too big of a hole. I also think it's too gradual. Like, the thing's this big. When I did it, things was like this big. Oh my gosh, there's so many variables I have to whittle down. I am not a full-time YouTuber. I don't have enough subscribers. Please subscribe. I would love to have, a whole 40-hour work week to work on this. And a whole sorts of just funding to funnel into this project. I would love to revisit this, especially if I had somebody to help me for free. I don't know, maybe I'll give you a meal. But mainly for free. But I digress. So I am sorry that there is no Supersonic ping pong action. It's just not this video. So I guess this ping pong saga, this 8 months of my life this has been, which will now be longer if I decide to do a third video in this series, is a big blue ball. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. I've just run into engineering roadblock after engineering roadblock, and I just have to engineer everything so jankly. It's just annoying. But if you want to support me, hit subscribe. I mean, I got shorts coming out every day. The next video is a thing on salting the earth. Yeah, get ready for that. In the meantime, I'd love to thank you all for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I've got other channels with other content if you want to watch that. And good night. Subs for trees. Subs for trees. Subs for trees. Subs for trees. Oh, you're still here? I thought I told you to go home. Oh, you want more? I'm flattered. Check out the playlist. If you want exclusive content, check out my Instagram, Dr_Sheep_YouTube. That's all lowercase. If you want to help the earth, subscribe. When I reach 100 subscribers, I'm going to plant 10 trees. If you feel that's too small, then check out my channel chart where I lay out even bigger goals. Finally, stick around for the next 20 seconds to give me that sweet watch time. Bye.